History's most notorious serial criminal, according to FBI.
2 hammer blows to the head.
So I shot him again and then shoved him down in the ditch.
I was doing you guys a favor, killing prostitutes.
Over the years, the FBI has dealt with some individuals so evil, they thought it best to try and keep them out of the public eye for humanity's own good. Here are 10 such criminals and the heinous crimes they've committed. Number 1. Nikolai Zhumagaliev. Nikolai Ispolovich Zhumagaliev, known as Metal Fang, would cook and eat his victims. Born in Kazakhstan to a Kazakh father and Belarusian mother, Zhumagaliev's early life in Uzun-Agach appeared normal. However, following a series of personal setbacks and after being diagnosed with sexually transmitted diseases, his perspective towards women darkened, resulting in a spree of brutal crimes starting in 1979. Zhumagaliev's killings consisted of necrophilia and cannibalism. His method was gruesome. After killing his victims, he would dismember their bodies, cook and consume their flesh, sometimes sharing it with unsuspecting people at gatherings. After his arrest, Zhumagaliev was found to be insane and was institutionalized. Despite attempts to reintegrate him into society, local opposition and his own criminal actions kept him confined to a high-security mental clinic. Number 2. Andrei Chikatilo. Andrei Chikatilo, a Soviet serial killer, claimed the lives of at least 50 people from 1978 to 1990, becoming one of the most notorious murderers in recent history. His early life was marked by hardship and trauma, growing up during the Great Ukrainian Famine of the 1930s. This experience deeply affected him and reportedly led to his cannibalistic tendencies. Despite his troubled past, Chikatilo achieved a degree and worked as a teacher, though allegations of sexual assaults led to his dismissal. Chikatilo preyed on young individuals at rail stations and bus depots. His methodical approach to selecting victims and the subsequent mutilations made it clear to authorities that they were dealing with a serial killer. However, Chikatilo managed to avoid capture for years, benefiting from the Soviet Union's denial of such crimes and the inefficiencies within its crumbling societal structure. His arrest in 1984 for a lesser crime revealed chilling evidence of his guilt, but a forensic mishap allowed him to continue his spree until his final capture in 1990. Number 3. Richard Chase. Richard Trenton Chase, infamously dubbed the Vampire of Sacramento, became famous for drinking his victims' blood. Born on May 23, 1950 in Sacramento, California, Chase exhibited disturbing behavior from an early age, including setting fires, torturing animals, and showing signs of severe mental distress. He also abused substances and thought that his blood was turning into powder. Chase's criminal acts began to increase in adulthood. His method involved shooting his victims, then engaging in acts of cannibalism and blood drinking, a horrific ritual that earned him his nickname. Among his 6 known victims was a young family brutally murdered in their home, their blood drained and their bodies left. The FBI managed to capture after a long investigation. Found in possession of a grisly collection of weapons and human remains, Chase's apartment was a house of horrors that provided evidence of his guilt. Despite his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, he was convicted of all 6 murders. Number 4. Gary Ridgway. Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, was responsible for killing almost 80 women. Born on February 18, 1949 in Salt Lake City, Utah, Ridgway's early life in the Seattle area seemed unremarkable. After serving in Vietnam and returning to a job painting trucks, Ridgway's dark side emerged. He had a lot of deep-seated anger towards women, which eventually led him down a path of murder. Beginning in 1982, Ridgway started killing women, primarily runaways and sex workers, along Route 99 in South King County, Washington. His method of murder was strangulation, after which he disposed of the bodies in wooded areas, including along the banks of the Green River, earning him his infamous nickname. For nearly 2 decades, Ridgway escaped capture, his ordinary appearance and lifestyle hiding his gruesome activities. It wasn't until 2001 that advances in DNA technology finally linked Ridgway to the murders. Arrested and charged with 4 counts of aggravated first-degree murder, he eventually pleaded guilty to 49 counts, receiving multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. In a chilling confession, Ridgway claimed to have killed as many as 75 to 80 women, making him one of the most famous serial killers in American history. Number 5. The Doodler. The Doodler is a strange figure in unsolved crimes, a serial killer who would draw his victims before killing them. This predator targeted the gay community, exploiting the social vulnerabilities and the anonymity of the nightlife to commit his horrible acts. The doodler would sketch his victims before luring them away to their deaths. The discovery of a body on Ocean Beach in January 1974 marked the beginning of a series of brutal murders that would haunt San Francisco. The doodler committed crimes at the same time the LGBTQ community was struggling for acceptance and rights during a period of widespread unfair treatment. The killer took advantage of the era's social dynamics, preying on individuals in gay bars and leaving the city's residents in fear. Despite the gravity and brutality of his crimes, the doodler managed to escape capture, partly due to the limitations of forensic technology at the time, and possibly due to societal attitudes towards the victims. Number 6. West Mesa Bone Collector. In February 2009, a grim discovery on Albuquerque's West Mesa of a human bone led to the discovery of a horrifying serial killer. Christine Ross and her dog stumbled upon what appeared to be a human bone, leading to the uncovering of 11 women and 1 unborn child, all buried in makeshift graves. This horrifying find pointed to the existence of an unidentified murderer, quickly dubbed the West Mesa Bone Collector. The victims, most of whom had ties to drugs and prostitution, their remains were scattered across the land. Despite exhaustive investigations, the identity of the killer remains a mystery, with law enforcement desperate for leads. Number 7. The Alphabet Murders. The Alphabet Murders were a series of chilling child murders where each victim was a young girl whose first name and surname began with the same letter. Further deepening the mystery, their bodies were discovered in or near towns that shared the initial letter with the girls' names. Carmen Colon, the first known victim, vanished after being sent to fetch a prescription. Days later, her body was found in a gully near Chile, setting off a horrifying sequence of events that would terrorize the Rochester community. The pattern continued with the disappearance and subsequent murder of Wanda Walkowitz, followed by the killing of Michelle Maenza. Both girls suffered fates similar to Carmen's, strangled and raped, their bodies discarded carelessly miles from their homes. The killer was never found. Number 8. Jamie Osuna. Jamie Osuna, a self-proclaimed Satanist, has a notorious reputation for his brutal crimes, including the torture and murder of Yvette Pina. Born on March 7, 1988 in Bakersfield, California, Osuna's life has been marked by violence and criminal behavior. Osuna's adult life has been spent mostly behind bars, serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole for the murder of Pena, a 36-year-old mother of 6. The murder, which took place in a Bakersfield motel, was particularly gruesome, with Osuna taking pleasure in the act. His time in prison has been equally violent. He made headlines again in 2019 for killing his cellmate Luis Romero at Corcoran State Prison. Number 9. Angel Resendez. Angel Maturino Resendez, infamously known as the Railroad Killer, would murder his victims near railroad tracks. His method of selecting victims in proximity to railways earned him his grim name. One of the most harrowing incidents involved the murder of Christopher Mayer and the brutal assault on his girlfriend Holly Dunn in 1997 as they walked along railroad tracks in Kentucky. Dunn miraculously survived, despite being raped, stabbed, and left for dead, and later became a vocal advocate for victims of sexual violence. Resendez also claimed the lives of multiple victims, including Dr. Claudia Benton, found sexually assaulted and murdered in her home near railroad tracks. His execution brought an end to the immediate threat, but the memories of his horrible acts remain. Number 10. Jason Barnum. Jason Barnum, known as Eyeball for his distinctive eye tattoo, was sentenced to 22 years in prison for a series of murders that he committed to support his heroin addiction. This included shooting an Anchorage police officer. In 2012, during a police investigation into burglaries and car thefts, Barnum fired at officers from a hotel bathroom, leading to an exchange of gunfire that injured him and an officer. In court, Barnum expressed remorse for his actions, attributing his criminal behavior in part to the challenges of re-entering society after a previous prison sentence. He mentioned his struggles with employment due to his tattoos.